The story of the dinosaurs is often told as one of inevitable triumph, a 150 million year reign of titans destined to rule the planet. But this narrative skips the most critical chapter. If we travel back 230 million years to the late Triassic, the world tells a different story. Here, in the sweltering floodplains of ancient Argentina, dinosaurs were not the kings. They were the underdogs, living in the shadows of far larger, more terrifying predators. The fossil beds of the Ecological Formation present us with a genuine paleontological cold case. Among the bones of giant crocodile line, Archosaurs, and formidable rhynchosaur herbivores, we find something else, something small, swift, and easily overlooked. Our subject, Eoraptor lunensis, the dawn plunderer. Barely a meter long, it possessed none of the overwhelming power of its neighbors. It was a marginal creature, a ghost in an ecosystem of giants. This presents our central anomaly. How did this seemingly primitive animal survive, let alone thrive, in such a hostile world? What was its secret? To answer that, we have to look past its size and analyze the evidence piece by piece. We are opening the case file on one of history's greatest survivors to understand the blueprint for a dynasty. To understand our survivor, we must go directly to the primary source, the nearly complete skeleton unearthed in 1991. This fossil, cataloged as PVSJ 512, isn't just a collection of bones. It's a blueprint for survival, a set of instructions written in stone. When we lay out this evidence, the first thing that strikes us isn't a show of force, but a masterpiece of efficiency. Our investigation begins with the skull, where the most telling clues about Eoraptor's lifestyle are found. The skull is small and lightweight, lacking the reinforced architecture needed for powerful, bone-crushing bites. But the real revelation is inside the jaw. Here, we find what's known as heterodont dentition, different types of teeth, each with a specific job. At the front of the jaw, the teeth are sharp, slender, and curved back, much like those of a predator designed for seizing and holding small, struggling prey. But as we move further back, the teeth change shape dramatically. They become flatter, broader, and more leaf-shaped, designed not for slicing flesh, but for shredding tough plant material. This is the paleontological equivalent of finding a suspect with both a hunting knife and a gardener's trowel. It's a clear signature of an omnivore. Eoraptor wasn't a dedicated hunter, nor was it a passive herbivore. It was an opportunist. Its diet was a mosaic of whatever was available: insects, lizards, small mammal relatives, and the fibrous vegetation that grew along the riverbanks. In a volatile Triassic world, this dietary flexibility wasn't just an advantage, it was a lifeline. Next, we examine the engine of this animal, its legs and hips. The bones of the hind limbs are long, slender, and hollow, a classic anatomical design for reducing weight and maximizing speed. Eoraptor walked on its toes, a digitigrade stance that lengthened its stride and allowed for rapid acceleration. But the crucial piece of evidence lies in the hip socket. The femur, or thigh bone, fits into a hole in the hip, allowing its legs to be positioned directly beneath its body. This is the hallmark of the dinosaur lineage, a radical departure from the sprawling gait of its crocodilian-line contemporaries. The biomechanics are unequivocal. This creature was built to run. We must picture its world not as a battlefield, but as a high-stakes obstacle course. The top predators of its time, creatures like Saurolophus, were 9-meter-long land crocodiles, ambush hunters with immense power but limited stamina. Eoraptor's survival wasn't about fighting these titans head-on. It was about seeing them first and having the explosive speed to disappear long before a confrontation could occur. Its legs weren't weapons, they were its escape plan. Finally, our investigation turns to its forelimbs. Unlike the massive, pillar-like front legs of many later dinosaurs, Eoraptor's arms were relatively long and slender, ending in highly capable hands. Each hand had 5 fingers, a primitive trait. However, the 3 longest fingers were tipped with sharp, well-developed claws. The other 2 were dramatically reduced, suggesting a specialization of function. These were not hands made for supporting weight. These were grasping hands, tools for interacting with the world in a way its larger rivals could not. When we combine this clue with its diet, a new layer of its behavior emerges. We can envision Eoraptor using these nimble hands to snatch a fast-moving lizard, to hold it down while the jaws went to work, or perhaps to pull down fern fronds. It could have used them to dig for grubs or roots, unlocking food sources completely inaccessible to the giants of its ecosystem. As we assemble these clues, the versatile teeth, the sprinter's legs, the grasping hands, the profile of our survivor becomes sharp and clear. We are not looking at a brute. The evidence doesn't point to a creature that dominated its environment through sheer force. Instead, it points to a highly adaptable generalist. Every feature in this skeleton speaks to a life of opportunism, speed, and resourcefulness. It was an animal designed not to conquer its world, but to cleverly navigate it, surviving on the scraps left behind by the giants. This was the strategy, the secret weapon that allowed one of the first dinosaurs to endure in an age where it was far from the top of the food chain. The evidence from the skeleton gives us the how, but to truly understand our subject's story, we need the where and the when. We must now expand our investigation from the fossil itself to the world it inhabited. Using the geological data from the Ishigualasto Formation, we can reconstruct this lost ecosystem and see how Eoraptor's unique toolkit was the key to its survival. Let's step back 230 million years. This part of ancient Gondwana was not a stable, lush paradise. It was a seasonal floodplain, prone to long, punishing dry seasons, followed by torrential rains. The landscape was carved by powerful rivers that would swell and then shrink, leaving behind a world of stark contrasts. It was an environment of boom and bust, a high-pressure crucible that relentlessly tested every creature living within it. This is the scene, and it was dominated by a cast of true giants. The undisputed apex predator here was not a dinosaur. It was Saurolophus, a 9-meter-long terrestrial predator from the crocodile lineage. With a massive skull and blade-like teeth, it was the Triassic equivalent of a grizzly bear, combined with a great white shark. Its prey were the large, common herbivores of the day, bulky, barrel-chested Dicynodonts and Rhynchosaurs, which moved in great herds. This was the heavyweight division of the Triassic food web. So where does our small, lightweight Eoraptor fit in? The answer is in the spaces they left behind. Eoraptor's survival strategy was one of meticulous avoidance. We can picture it moving through the undergrowth of ferns and cycads, its life a constant state of high alert. Its sharp senses would have been tuned to the heavy footfalls of a passing Saurosuchus or the herd movements of its potential prey. Its speed was not for chasing down large animals, but for vanishing, a preemptive defense that ensured it rarely had to engage in a fight it could not win. While the Titans battled for supremacy on the open plains, Eoraptor's entire world was the microcosm, the ecosystem of the small. Here, in the shadows, its generalist nature became its greatest weapon. Its sharp, carnivorous front teeth and grasping hands were perfectly suited for hunting the abundant small vertebrates. Lizards, early mammal relatives, Provenognathus, and even the young of other dinosaurs. These creatures were too small, too fast, and too much trouble for a giant like Saurosuchus to bother with. For Eoraptor, they were the perfect meal. It exploited a niche that the apex predators had entirely overlooked. But the true genius of its strategy became apparent when the dry season hit and small prey grew scarce. While the specialist carnivores struggled, Eoraptor could simply switch its diet. Its leaf-shaped back teeth allowed it to process the tough, fibrous plants that endured the drought. This omnivorous safety net meant that it was never entirely at the mercy of one food source. This is the ecological story of Eoraptor. It wasn't a challenger for the throne. It was a creature pioneering an entirely new way of life based on efficiency and adaptability. While the ruling Archosaurs were locked in an evolutionary arms race, investing heavily in size and raw power, the earliest dinosaurs were playing a different game. They were low-cost, low-impact survivors, built to endure the unpredictable nature of their world. They thrived in the margins, honed their versatile toolkit, and laid the evolutionary groundwork for a dynasty that would one day inherit the Earth. Our investigation is drawing to a close. We open this case file with a simple question. How did a small, seemingly outmatched creature like Eoraptor survive in an ecosystem ruled by giants? The evidence, once pieced together, provides a clear and compelling verdict. Eoraptor was not an evolutionary prototype waiting for its moment. It was a highly sophisticated survivor, perfectly tuned to the harsh realities of its world. The clues were there all along, written in its very bones. The versatile teeth of an omnivore provided a buffer against starvation. The long, powerful legs, built for speed, were a masterful escape strategy, allowing it to evade the lumbering titans that were its neighbors. And its grasping hands gave it a dexterity that few other animals of its time possessed, opening up a world of untapped food sources. The verdict, therefore, is this. Eoraptor's success was not rooted in power, but in its profound adaptability. It was the ultimate generalist in an age of specialists. While its massive contemporaries bet everything on size and strength, Eoraptor pursued a different path, one of efficiency, speed, and opportunism. This was the blueprint that would not only see the dinosaurs through the Triassic, but would eventually allow them to survive the extinction event that wiped out their giant rivals, paving the way for their future reign. But closing one case file often opens another. The skeleton tells us what Eoraptor was, but it remains largely silent on how it lived with its own kind. This leads us to our lingering mystery. Did it possess a social structure? Can we imagine these creatures moving in small, coordinated packs, using teamwork to find food or watch for danger? This kind of cooperation would have been a powerful force multiplier, another layer of its survival strategy. The fossil record has not yet given us this answer, leaving us with a tantalizing question for a future investigation. The story of Eoraptor is a profound reminder that the history of life is not always written by the victors of a single battle, but by the survivors of a long and grueling war. Its legacy is not one of conquest, but of endurance. It teaches us that in the grand narrative of evolution, the ability to adapt is often a far greater power than brute strength. Leaving secrets still buried, waiting for the next investigator to uncover.